Okay, we're going to talk about the gear that you need for a time lapse. Before you can go anywhere else with a time lapse, you have to have a sturdy tripod. The trick with the time lapse is because you're shooting so many different images, maybe 300 images over the course of a couple hours, everything has to be solid. You can't have shaky frames, otherwise the final video is not going to look good. So start everything off with a really solid tripod. I have a Gitzo and a Really Right Stuff. There's any number of brands out there. Just make sure you have a solid tripod. Obviously, we're not going to go anywhere unless we don't have a camera. I'm a Nikon shooter. Any kind of camera is going to work for a time lapse. The trick here is figuring out how to set your camera such that it takes images over a certain amount of time. We're going to get to that in just a second. A few things that are handy in shooting time lapses camera-wise is I like a wide-angle lens. Oftentimes, I like to see a big scene. You'll have more subject matter that's moving through that. I also like a bright lens. This lens is a 3.5, so it's fairly bright, which helps me focus, especially if I'm shooting in low light or at night. Next up, and this is the critical piece, time-lapse specific, is an intervalometer. There's a number of brands of these on the market. This happens to be a Velo. But what the intervalometer does is it allows you to set your interval and how many frames you're going to shoot. So in essence, it's a timer that you're going to control to tell your camera when to shoot. Now, an interesting point about intervalometers, there's a number of third-party ones that are external to your camera. Some Nikon cameras actually have an intervalometer built into the back of it. So that's very handy if you happen to be a Nikon shooter. You may already have an intervalometer in your camera. You'll just have to check and see. We're going to look at that in a little bit on actually how to set that up on the Nikon camera. Moving down the road, because you're going to be shooting for such a long time, maybe 4 hours, you need fresh batteries and a second set of batteries. Sometimes when I go out in Colorado in the middle of the night, I'll shoot a 3-hour sequence and it'll suck out like half my battery life. So bring extra batteries. Remember, you're shooting over long periods of time with time-lapse, so batteries are pretty critical. Hand in hand with that are large, fast flash cards. You have to have a large flash card because you're going to be photographing so many frames. You may take 600, 700 frames. That's a lot. Imagine a D800 that has it's a 36 megapixel camera and you shoot 800 frames. That fills up a lot of flash cards. Hand in hand with how big the card is how fast the card is. You want to have a fast flash card such that the camera and card can read and write quickly so that you never miss a frame because your card is writing the shot you just took. If you have a short interval, it would be a disaster to have your camera miss frames because the card's reading and writing. So flash cards are big and they're fast.